We've been working down here, Ayers Shoreline, Ayers Point, all the way down toward Cottonwood and Oyster Bayous, toward Panther Creek, Panther Lake, all that area back there, Panther Point. All these little shorelines. We've had such fluctuation in our water temps and our water levels here the last few days. We've had negative tides, and then we've had plus tides, and then back down to negative tides again. So we kind of give ourselves the best of both worlds when you're consistently seeing that day in and day out. So when we're fishing up in these areas and we have a little bit more water than we've typically had, then we're able to work some of these flats and some of these areas off the shell bars or shell reefs, should I say, little pads. Not so much the long reefs like Ayers Reef or Ayers Dugout or even on Cedar Dugout, some of those places like that, but just a little shorter expansions of reefs, little pads and stuff have been productive for us. We've had some redfish, few trout hanging in around those types of areas, like back up in here in the dugout area. And then, of course, working down the San Antonio shoreline, one of those negative tide days when we're hitting these guts. So these deeper little channels and stuff that go into these back lake mouths, those are great areas of target that you want to be. And then, of course, always, 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 if you can, line up several of these that if you don't find fish in one of them, because usually they'll dictate to you pretty quick if there's fish hanging in them or not. So you won't have to spend just a lot of time in one trying to grind to find a fish or two. So, if you spent 45 minutes to an hour in one and you're not getting production that you want, then then get out of there and move on to the next location. So that's pretty much what we've done. We've just kind of worked down these shorelines, found grass beds, found a few of the little shell pads and worked in and around those and just kind of pulled the fish out of here, a few fish out there. And then get all the way back down and just hit each one of these little guts that are down the way. And some of them have held fish, some of them did not. So that was the kind of the tactic at which we went. And then, of course, get back up in Panther Lake and fish all these areas back in here, all around Swan, the backside there. That was more so on our plus tide days. That opened up for us and gave us opportunities back in and around that. Not so much on the outside there. That's more of our spring and summertime pattern. And of course, just continue to work down towards Cedar Lake. And of course, the outside edges like Twin Lake and all this area back in here has been pretty good for us. Long way to run, especially if you're coming out of the St. Charles area, which we will typically do. But if you're coming out of Port O'Connor or Charlie's Bait Camp or maybe even Seadrift, it's really not that terrible of a run for you to come across from that area. But those areas have been productive for us. And like I say, not a tremendous amount of fish that we've caught in those, but we've just pulled them out, a few here and a few there. Just to continue our day and be productive. The main things that we're focusing on in and around are our majors and minors. And in between those time frames, trying to get to the next bite frame, if it sets up well for us, was a grind. There was tough times during those with a lot of little lulls. Then you'd pick a fish up, but our main production time frame was in the majors and minors, and that's what we maximized our time around that. So baits that we were using. Soft Dine XL, multiple different flavors. Down south lures in all three, especially coming off of this new moon phase that we just got finished up. The super model, the regular model, and the burner shed, all three were very good in multiple flavors. Magic Grass, Twisted Tea, Big Papa. There's a few other flavors that were mixed in there. White Ice, Bone Diamond, all were pretty good flavors for us. So we had a bunch of different ones that we threw, and then of course in the burner shad size, we were throwing the mud minnow primarily. It was very productive for us on certain days, and then of course watermelon red in the original size was a pretty good color as well, as long as the Bone Diamond and White Ice, and that was pretty good. Twisted Tea in the original size, all very good for us. As far as the knock and tail goes, primarily the greenback and the heavy metal did well for us. So that was two flavors of that. And of course, corky season, if you're a big corky fan, any of the floaters or fat boys, of course, I'm like the originals and the devil primarily. I did not throw that very much this past week, but I had a few people that did and did pretty well with it. It was all right. No great fish, a lot of good medium-sized fish in that 15 to 18 size. And of course, several redfish are in the lower slot, that 21 to 24 size range, which is really good, especially if you're going to take some home with you. That's a great thing to have right there. So we gave ourselves lots of different opportunities in these past few days. Like I say, in and around the majors and minors, paying attention to what the water levels were, because it fluctuated somewhat every day to a certain degree, some more drastic than others. But very important to pay attention to that, because some of these areas up here in and around all these shell beds and stuff, if you don't catch it right, and if you're not real aware of that, you're going to put yourself in a little bit of jeopardy because of the amount of shell that's up in and around that. So always make sure that you've got the right amount of water to accommodate your boat and what the capabilities of your boat is. Again, patience, perseverance this time of year. The fish, you'll find them. Just stay on them. Paying attention to what our weather pattern is, also very important this time of year as well. We've got a little front that's going to be pushing through later this week. So just keep an eye on that and enjoy your time out on the water. Up here in Allen's Bight, down by the ranch house, this whole shoreline here has been fairly productive for us. You know, it's a little bit more hard-packed sand than we're looking typically like to be over the mud and grass and clump shell this time of year. But every once in a while, we'll take a little gamble and see, you know, fishing these edges, especially when you got the tide that really drops out, so you get a little bit more mud as you get further away from that shoreline there on the ranch shoreline. So when you got the lower tides, then you're able to fish it further out. Like when we got our normal tides or higher tides, you have to stay closer to the shoreline. That's where the hard pack stuff typically is. So this is, for me, you know, late spring, summer is a good shoreline to fish, but ever so often when we got the right tide, then we'll get out there and fish a little bit deeper than what we typically could and have some pretty decent days out there. And that's what we did. We found a few trout that were sprinkled out in and amongst those. And primarily when we were fishing those, we were throwing the soft dines back in there, or even the corkies, and just seeing if getting those baits to suspend, the double Ds as well, because we were in some thigh deep water out there, pretty good ways out on some of those negative tide days. But we'd get back up here in Allen and work the edge on both sides. You got the deeper channel that works through the middle of it. You got the little point there, and then all the little back lake mouths that dump in and around all out on this. We pull a fish out here, there. Again, not great numbers, not just sitting in one spot and catching them one after the other, but as you would work, you know, you'd pull out 4 or 5 here or there, move on down to the next location, or just continue to work down your shoreline or your edges and locate your fish. Continue on the inside here. This is all a great typical little shoreline. And out here on the point at Allen's, this whole little area out here, got the little bit deeper grass beds, but again, on your negative tide days, that really comes into play for you, so it sets itself up well to fish it, especially on some of the calmer days. We had a couple that were not too bad that you could set up there. So, of course, you know, if you got a big north wind, northwest wind, this particular area here doesn't set up particularly well, especially as you get out from behind the Allen's Bight area. You get out there more in the open water, so it gets a little difficult to fish that. So always keep that in mind, and the direction that wind is coming from, especially if you're going to fish out here on this point. We worked some of these edges out here on the grass to see if there were just some fish that may have been suspending out there. Not too much productivity there. More so with some of the back lakes, that the mouths that dumped out to, and you could walk back up in some of those on your more positive water days where the water has pushed back. So we get back in some of those areas and little lakes that's got a little bit more mud to it. Pull out some redfish, occasional snag a black drum in there. But, you know, trout and redfish primarily are the targets, and that's primarily what we were catching in these areas. Same thing, down south, all 3 flavors, supermodel, original size, burner shad, just kind of let the fish dictate to us. The Miradines, soft dines, XL, regular size has been good. Again, double D was pretty good for us as well. The knock and tail, same type of thing. So the greenbacks, heavy metal. Had a few people throw rogue, caught a few fish with it as well. So, but again, a lot of different types of baits that we were throwing size-wise and profile-wise, just to kind of get us a consistent bite throughout the process of our fishing day. Again, majors and minors, most important this time of year. Really focusing in and around those type of things, just looking for your key signs, looking for a little bit of bait, maybe ospreys working, pelicans diving. All those key things are what you really want, and see what type of water flow that you got. And of course, some of the water was like gin clear, and then some of it was a little bit off color, which we had a little bit more productivity in the off color water. So again, make sure you're paying attention to all those typically little bitty things. There's more of those things that you kind of put in your favor this time of year. You give yourself to have a productive day consistently throughout your fishing day in and around these types of areas. Like I say, just patience and perseverance in and around this time thing. Just take your time with it. Again, 16th ounce jig heads, not throwing anything heavier than that. Water temps have kind of leveled off here over the last few days because we haven't had cold air. So water temps have been hovering in the upper 50s, low 60s, and as we've gotten off the water in the afternoons, it's maybe in some areas even in the mid 60s. So important thing to always keep in mind, just to know what that water temp is, because fish like to be comfortable just like we do. So again, just make sure you're paying attention to your signs. Just take your time with these areas and you'll find and locate your fish. Over in Port Bay, across from Italian Bend, all this here in the close to the shrimp farm area, this little flat that's right up in here on this west shoreline, all this area back in here come off this point up back on this shoreline here. You've got a nice little edge that works out there. You've got a decent amount of squishy mud that's out there a little bit deeper. And like I say, on our negative tide days, these types of areas I like to look for when you've got that nice little edge that you can get out just a tad bit deeper than what you normally would be able to. Throwing our suspended baits out here off of these places that were like this, all the way back around here off of this point here, all the way up to the 188 kayak launch that's right there. This whole little area out here can be very good at times. We had a couple of days here or there that were pretty productive, especially out on this particular flat here. Threw some Corky Originals, threw some topwater bait, the Double D. You got scattered grass that's out there. You got the right kind of mud that's out there. Of course, it's big, wide open, that area there. So, and then the same thing back around here. Throwing the Soft Dine XL, throwing the Supermodel. Again, 16th ounce jig heads to allow that bait to really glide through the water column for us and really work all that type of area for us. You know, it wasn't a super fast pace by any means, so we just get up on one end of it, just kind of let the wind dictate where we were going to start. So we had, you know, our southeast breeze, and obviously we'd get back down on the point and work our way back. And of course, if we had east or northeast winds, and we'd get back up on this end and work all that. So big flat there. Of course, some of these areas here don't set up well when you have a super negative tide, which we had a couple of days that were that way. So we just have to stay away from that and get off on the deeper edge. That's why we get up on this backside of here in port. So you got the drop that's out there on those particular days. Then when we got those more productive tides or higher tides, and then we'd get up on those flats back there and work all those stuff real thoroughly. Be very surgical about that this time of year. If you get onto a flat and you see the signs that you're looking for, number one, you always got to have bait working in the area. Or if you got an osprey that's hovering, you know that there's going to be some bait there. Obviously, the brown pelican's diving on it. Those are going to let you be indicators that you do have some bait, even though you may not see some bait flipping, i.e. mullet. So when you go to town and start working these areas like that, you just want to be patient. Again, be persistent. Have you 2 or 3 different profile style baits, color-wise, and if you got multiple personnel that are with you that y'all can kind of spread out and work that, and everybody's working something different, then you can figure it out a lot faster and let the pattern develop for you. And once that pattern develops, then just stick to it, because it's pretty much going to be that same pattern anywhere that you go, as long as you're over the same type of structure. Especially this time of year, that's the main thing that you want, is the consistent structure, mud, grass, which is a great combination. If you can sprinkle in clump shell along with that, then it's dynamite combination, because you get all the best of everything that these fish are wanting to be in and around. Again, Corkies, suspended baits, Double Ds, the down south, all the different flavors I mentioned in the other videos. Same thing applies in these areas here. The knocking tails, marker 54, the jerk shrimp as well. If you want to bounce that thing off the bottom or bang it underneath a popping cork. Some of those had a day or two where some people were doing that and had pretty decent success rate with that as well. But being a plastics guy, and of course the suspended baits this time of year is the main things that we focus on primarily, at least on the trips we take. So anyhow, just give yourself options. Like I say, we're on the backside of the new moon, fixing to get into those transition wild card days, so that you want to have all different options available to you. Paying attention to what your weather pattern is going to be, because we have somewhat a little bit of a change here over the next few days. So take that into consideration if you're going to be out on the water over this coming week. Just take precautions where you need to, and just make the main thing is have fun while you're fishing out there, but be safe at the same time.